When they left the hospital, Maddie was carried out by Jeff. Now she didn't have any excuse for Jeff to put her down. How embarrassing. Such a big person carrying her around like this. And Jeff wasn't tired? Carrying her like this must be a great test of arm strength. On the way back, Maddie felt guilty when she saw Jeff's cold expression. He knew that she had been lying. It had really cracked. If only it hadn't cracked, she would have the upper hand. Reality was always cruel. Jeff, you're not really going to make me stop going to school for a week, are you? Maddie looked at Jeff with a wronged expression. Nope, Jeff said. Maddie heaved a sigh of relief. Well, at least she was allowed to go to school. Jeff, don't worry. I will try my best not to use my left leg. I can walk on my right leg, Maddie said. Jeff turned and looked outside the car window. Maddie looked at it and wondered if this meant Jeff didn't want to talk, but she was extremely patient. Whether that was the case or not, Maddie stopped talking. However, the next day after Maddie finished her breakfast in bed, a woman walked in. She wore glasses, had a pretty appearance, was tall, and had a serious temperament. When Maddie looked at her with a puzzled expression, the woman introduced herself. My name is Helen. I'm your teacher. This week I'll be teaching your lessons. What? Maddie looked at Helen, flabbergasted. Just then, Jeff walked in, and she hurriedly asked Jeff, Jeff, what does this mean? Didn't you say that I could go back to school? When did I say that? Jeff asked. In the car yesterday. Maddie paused and looked at Jeff with tears in her eyes as she began to understand. Jeff, I want to go back to school. I don't want to have lessons at home. It's the same thing. The teachers I hire will be better than the teachers in your school. Call her Miss Jefferson, Jeff instructed. Maddie looked at the teacher gloomily. Out of respect, she had no choice but to say, Hello, Miss Jefferson. Then she looked at Jeff. Can I go to school now? The teachers have already been summoned. After Jeff said that, he turned around and left the room. Maddie felt miserable. Miss Jefferson spent the entire day teaching Maddie. It was the same amount as the time she spent in school, and she still had homework. Are you listening to my lecture? Helen looked at Maddie with a serious expression. Maddie was stunned as she tried to conceal her absent-mindedness. I'm sorry, she said. I hope you will respect my work, Helen said. Maddie was speechless. This teacher was even more vicious than the ones at school. Where did Jeff find her? Could it be that Jeff had intentionally found a strict teacher? Just before dinner, Jeff walked into her room. Maddie was on her bed doing her homework. Helen saw Jeff walk in and stood up to greet him. Her warm attitude was very different from her attitude toward Maddie during her lessons. There was a smile on her face, and Maddie hadn't seen Helen smile for the whole day. She couldn't help but be surprised. It was obvious that Helen was interested in Jeff. Maddie looked at Jeff, pursed her lips, and continued writing. Were you obedient? Jeff asked. She was quite obedient. It's just that she likes to be distracted during class. However, this isn't a big problem. This is a habit of every student, Helen said. Maddie glanced at Helen, who had a big smile on her face. I didn't ask you. Jeff's voice was cold. The smile on Helen's face froze. Only now did Maddie realize that Jeff had asked her. I was very obedient. Maddie was deliberately opposing Helen. She didn't like her new teacher very much. I hired Miss Jefferson from a different university. If there's anything you don't understand, just ask her, Jeff said. Maddie was surprised. The cost must have been very high. She didn't know why Jeff would waste this money. Wouldn't it be fine if he just let her go to school? In school, a teacher was watching so many students, but now it was 1 against 1. Jeff was torturing her. Why aren't you talking? Jeff frowned. Sorry, Maddie said slowly. Jeff glanced at her indifferently and went out. Helen returned to her chair and sat down. She flipped through the book in her hands with an ugly expression on her face. Maddie glanced at Helen, then continued doing her homework on her own. When she was done, she could eat dinner. Who knew what kind of delicacies would be given to her tonight? When it was time to end class, Helen left. Maddie was lying on the bed, resting and playing on her cell phone. It was actually okay to have lessons at home. But there was another whole week of this. Only 2 days had passed. Maddie sighed. The games on her phone weren't that fun anymore. Just then, Jeff entered the room. Maddie's eyes flickered to him, but she did not say anything. Tired? Jeff asked. No. Then what are you sighing for then? I want to get out of bed, Maddie whined. You really want to? Maddie nodded seriously. It's so boring to stay in bed all the time. Jeff sat on the edge of the bed without saying a word. Maddie looked at Jeff, not knowing what he was going to say to her. Just as she sat up straight and prepared to talk to Jeff, his body pressed down on hers. Maddie didn't even have time to react before his mouth was on hers. Maddie's eyes were wide and clear. Her lips were soft and hot. Maddie realized that if she had reacted a little slower, that would have been the end of it. She would have been hit by the car. Maddie slowly walked towards the school with a limp. She figured that it wasn't broken, or else how would it be possible to walk? Suddenly, Lydia's words made sense. She had warned Maddie to be careful when crossing the road. Was she not careful? When she arrived at the school, she went to the infirmary to the school doctor. Your knee isn't broken, but you need to go to the hospital to get an x-ray just in case. I'll treat your wounds first, then you can go to the hospital and get it examined further, the school doctor said. He cut off Maddie's pants below the knee and treated the wound. Maddie thought it wasn't possible that the wound would be very serious after all. Therefore, after taking care of the wounds, Maddie didn't go to the hospital, but to the classroom. She didn't leave the school until after class was over. Maddie looked at her knee again. It was even more swollen and painful than it was earlier. Did her bones really crack? Maddie didn't really want to go to the hospital. She decided to wait for 2 days to see if the pain went away. Maybe in 2 days it will be all right. But then again, if it was like this, would Jeff see it? Thinking about Jeff's expression, Maddie decided to buy a new pair of pants first. When she arrived at the women's clothing store, Maddie chose a pair of wide-legged pants. However, when she walked, she could not help but cry out in pain. She hoped that she could hide her pain from Jeff. After arriving home, Maddie first poked her head in the door. Since she didn't see Jeff, she began to cross the hall and climb up to the floor above. Before she could walk out of the hall, though, a voice came from behind her. Why did you come back so late? Jeff asked. Maddie's body stiffened as she turned around. Looking at Jeff, who had appeared out of nowhere, her small eyes flashed as she said, It's not that late, right? I usually come back at this hour. You're 10 minutes late, Jeff pointed out. Maddie huffed in annoyance. Jeff, it's just 10 minutes. I took some time to look at the scenery. It seems that the scenery must be pretty good, which is why you stayed out for an extra 10 minutes, Jeff said with an unfriendly expression. Maddie pursed her lips but didn't say anything. She knew that Jeff was unreasonable, but it was also amazing that he was this unreasonable. Jeff's gaze fell on that eye-catching pair of wide-legged pants. You weren't wearing these pants when you went out in the morning. Maddie usually wore pants that were straight and lined, which suited her very well. What pants are these now? I ripped my pants in PE class, so I went to buy a new pair, Maddie said with a smile. Jeff looked at her coldly with his sharp black eyes, causing Maddie to lower her head. Let's eat, Jeff said. Maddie raised her head and looked at Jeff. Was he going to watch her enter the dining room? No way. If she walked in front of Jeff, he would definitely notice that she was walking with a limp. It doesn't matter. Just say you fell down during gym class, Maddie thought. Thus, under Jeff's oppressive gaze, Maddie moved her feet. As she moved, she said, "I fell down in gym class. It was nothing." Jeff followed her with a cold expression. Maddie was so frightened that she stopped moving. The next moment, Jeff picked her up. "Ah!" Maddie instinctively grabbed onto Jeff's broad shoulders, afraid that she would fall down. "Jeff, what are you doing?" Jeff put her on the sofa and asked, "Which leg?" Maddie was numbed by his gaze. She pointed at her left knee with her finger. Jeff's hand made contact with Maddie's skin, causing her body to tremble in pain. "Ah, be gentle," she cried. Jeff's expression instantly turned ugly. He hadn't used any force at all. "Go get the scissors," Jeff instructed. The servant immediately left. Maddie was still in pain and didn't think about what Jeff was going to do with the scissors. It was only when the scissors were in Jeff's hands and he was poised to cut her pants that she finally came to her senses. She hurried to say, "These are my new pants. What are you doing?" "I'm fine, just a little bruised. I'll be fine tomorrow." Maddie grabbed the scissors. "Let go." Jeff glared at her coldly. Maddie swallowed and retracted her hand. Jeff cut open the pants at the knee. When he removed the cloth, Jeff's heart sank, and his usually cold heart started to twitch uncomfortably. Jeff didn't show any signs of emotion when he was torturing people. Incomparably, this kind of injury was negligible. However, this wound was on Maddie's body. It caused Jeff's emotions to become bloodthirsty. His face was terrifyingly vicious. Although her knee had been bandaged, it was still swollen, and there were scrapes on the side that had not been bandaged. "Is this what you meant by nothing?" Jeff raised his eyes. They were terrifyingly cold. I feel fine." Maddie was speechless when she met Jeff's eyes. "Falling in PE class? Try lying again," Jeff threatened while suppressing his anger. "Fine. I went to the library at noon to borrow books, but when I crossed the road, I didn't see the car. The car brushed past me and I fell, and that was it." The more Maddie said, the darker Jeff's expression became. She quickly added, "But I went to the school's infirmary. The school doctor said that the bones were not broken." Jeff carried Maddie directly to the car. In the blink of an eye, they had arrived at the hospital. Jeff's expression was very ugly, so Maddie tactfully allowed the doctor to do all kinds of tests without saying a word. She was only injured in her leg, so why did she need to take a full-body X-ray? Wasn't that a bit too much? After the X-ray was taken, the doctor said, "Everything else is fine except for the cracked kneecap. Try not to walk when you get back. It'll be fine after about a week." Maddie panicked when she heard this. "I can't walk for a week, but I still have to go to class." "It's better to focus on your body." The doctor smiled. Maddie frowned. She was really unlucky. Lydia's face was pale, and her hands, which were holding the steering wheel, were trembling. She hadn't expected that she would see such a scene. Jeff actually kissed Maddie? This was definitely something that only couples would do. It was so intense, so public. In her opinion, Jeff was a mature man. However, she saw how Jeff couldn't control himself. And the person who caused him to lose control was not her, but that ugly Maddie. Could it be that she couldn't compare to an ugly monster? It was no wonder that Jeff wanted to keep Maddie by his side. But she couldn't accept it. In the car, the sweets from the dessert shop were packaged in all sorts of ways and were filling the seats. Maddie couldn't be happy, even though she was sitting next to desserts that were so delicious. Jeff, who sat opposite her, was calm. It was as if kissing her was a very normal thing. She had to get Jeff to stop kissing her. This was absolutely impossible. If this continued, how was she going to find a boyfriend in the future? "Jeff," she began. Jeff looked at her with his faint gaze. Maddie's heart tightened when she saw his stare. "Jeff, in school, In the eyes of my classmates, I'm an ugly monster. Did you know that?
I know, Jeff confirmed.
How do you know?
Are you questioning my taste? Jeff glanced at her coldly.
Why did you kiss me? Is there something wrong with your head?
Maddie was puzzled. Jeff was stunned for a moment, as if he couldn't believe that she was accusing him of having a bad brain. You're asking for it, he threatened. Maddie jumped in fright when she realized that she had said something stupid. She quickly waved her hand in the air and explained,
No, Jeff, I'm not saying that you have a bad brain. I'm saying that you've been muddle-headed when it comes to me.
Maddie felt sweat on her forehead and wiped it off.
Jeff, you know I'm right. Think about it. If others were to see you do that to me, they would definitely think that that there's something wrong.
Maddie touched her temple, or maybe they would think he was blind. Jeff laughed coldly. It made Maddie's scalp tingle. No one else would think so, he disagreed.
Why?
Maddie was puzzled. Others will only feel that getting people to kiss you is a skill of yours. Maddie's doubt turned into disbelief as her eyes widened. There was actually such an argument. It really frightened her. The reason why she was scared was because what Jeff said made a lot of sense. However, she would not admit it in her heart.
No one would think that. Besides, you were my first kiss. How could I have any skills?
How would they know that? Jeff was in a good mood as he asked, If you say that there's something wrong with my head one more time, I'll kiss you until you suffocate. Maddie opened her mouth and closed it. Even if you don't say it, I will still kiss you, Jeff teased. Under the strong, improper pressure, Maddie had to think of a final sentence.
Others must think that I forced you.
Right now, she would rather slander herself than say that she was skilled. Jeff's deep eyes were filled with interest and love. He boasted shamelessly. It's good that you know this. Maddie was so angry that she didn't want to speak anymore. Being with Jeff was a very scary thing. When she went back to school, Maddie didn't find the study book she wanted, so she went to the library. Thinking about Jeff, who would be even scarier than Stacy if Maddie failed the exam, her whole body trembled. After finding the book, Maddie started flipping through the pages. Suddenly, she felt someone sit down across from her. Maddie raised her head instinctively and was immediately stunned. Lydia looked at her with a smile.
What a coincidence,
Lydia said.
You came here to find books?
Maddie asked.
That's right. I also like reading books.
Lydia looked at Maddie, sizing her up secretly. The image of Maddie kissing Jeff was still fresh in her mind, making her feel angry. But she wasn't known as a strong woman for nothing. Soon, she was able to control her emotions. Lydia smiled and said,
Go ahead and read. I won't bother you any longer. I'll be leaving soon.
After taking a few steps, she turned around and smiled at Maddie, saying, There are a lot of cars on the road. You must be careful and be safe. Maddie felt that Lydia's words were strange. Why did she add such a sentence when she had already left? Or perhaps she was mistaken. Maddie nodded.
Okay.
Seeing that Lydia had really left, Maddie heaved a sigh of relief. She had nothing to say to Lydia. After reading for a while in the library and seeing that it was almost time to return to school, Maddie got up and left the library. She had to cross the road to get back to the school. Maddie first looked at the cars on both sides before crossing the road. There were no red lights or crosswalks. Everyone crossed the road that way. Seeing that there were no cars coming, Maddie started to cross the street. When she was halfway across, a car quickly turned the corner and drove directly towards Maddie. Maddie was startled when she saw it, and she quickly took a step back. The car didn't crash into her, but it brushed past her body and sent her to the ground.
Ah!
Maddie fell heavily onto the ground, making her head spin. After the dizziness passed, she saw the car leaving. It did not stop just because it hit her. She felt pain coming from her knee. Maddie sat up and saw that the fabric over her left knee was torn up and covered in blood. Maddie couldn't take the pain anymore. She pursed her lips and blew on the wound, trying to relieve the stinging pain. Maddie came back to her senses and immediately tried to push him away. Jeff directly put his hand on the back of Maddie's head. There was nowhere for her to run. The more Maddie struggled, the stronger Jeff became. Her sweet taste caused Jeff's mind to turn to greedy thoughts. He wanted her breath, her smell, everything. Just when Jeff wanted to do other things, there was a noise by the doorway. Letting go of the confused Maddie, Jeff's gaze swept over to the door with hostility. Helen, who had forgotten her phone, was dumbstruck. Her voice trembled as she said, I dropped my phone here. Maddie, who was in Jeff's arms, suddenly came to her senses and froze. On the other side, Helen picked up her phone and left without daring to stop for a moment. Maddie escaped from Jeff's embrace and punched Jeff's chest with her fist. She was extremely angry. What's wrong with you? Why did you do this to me? Also, we were even seen by someone. What does it matter? Jeff smiled. No, you think it doesn't matter? Maddie could not believe Jeff's thick skin. Jeff ignored her astonishment. He stood up and warned, If you want to get off the bed again, I'll treat you like this. With that, he left. Maddie was left alone on the bed in a daze. Only after a long time did she manage to react. Did he kiss her only to threaten her not to get out of bed? Why did he have to do that without warning? Maddie was so angry that she wanted to smash something. However, there was only a phone in her hand, and she couldn't bear to break it. Plus, if she was going to smash it, she wanted to aim it at Jeff's face. This was too despicable. How could he treat her like this? It was embarrassing to think about it. What did Helen think when she saw Jeff kiss her? Maddie felt that she was unable to see her again, but the next day Helen punctually appeared in Maddie's room. Maddie observed her and noticed that her expression was even more serious than yesterday. It was as if someone had offended her. Let's see how you do on the exam today, Helen said. Maddie began her examination. After the exam was over, she gave it to Helen to review. Maddie just watched her scowling. Unexpectedly, Helen spoke up. I accidentally saw what happened yesterday. I apologize, Helen said. Maddie was stunned, as she did not expect her to take the initiative to say this. It doesn't matter. Maddie didn't know what else to say. She felt especially uncomfortable. Helen raised her head, her eyes full of aggression. I think the best thing to do at your age is to learn. Do you think I'm right? Helen held out the exam she had reviewed. Maddie looked at the paper in Helen's hands and accepted it. Correct the mistakes and copy the entire paper 10 times, Helen said. What? 10 times? Maddie was stunned. That's right, Helen insisted. Why? Did I get them all wrong? Maddie looked at the reverse side of the question. No, I want you to copy the questions 10 times without making a mistake so that you won't forget the ones you did correctly. Look at the questions you've got wrong. Helen acted as if she knew what was best. She was the teacher. She had the final say. And if Maddie wasn't obedient, Helen would definitely tell Jeff. Therefore, Maddie could only bite the bullet and start revising the test. After she was done, she began copying the questions she had gotten right. She kept writing until lunch, and not even a third of it had been copied. Maddie silently cursed. Was Helen messing with her? Lunch was brought in by a servant. Just as Maddie was about to eat, her phone rang. Maddie saw the caller. It was Jeff. She answered, Jeff, what do you want? I want you to call me handsome from now on, Jeff answered. Maddie pursed her lips tightly. This was too much. She didn't answer. Or do you want me to force you to shout it out loud? Jeff said threateningly. Maddie panicked and had no choice but to whisper his new nickname, but she mumbled it. "Repeat. Say it clearly," Jeff ordered. Maddie closed her eyes tightly, as if mustering her courage. "Handsome, what do you want?" Jeff heard it clearly and felt his chest go numb. He couldn't help but smile, but his tone was still as calm as usual. "You need to eat more." Maddie was surprised. "How did you know I was eating?" "It's lunchtime, isn't it? Or are you not eating?" Jeff's voice became dangerous. "I'm eating. Let's stop talking. I'm hanging up." Maddie quickly hung up. It was impossible to keep up with Jeff's logic. For the next 2 days, Maddie's studies were the same. First an exam, then 10 copies. On the 3rd day, the first thing Helen said when she walked into the room was, "Here's your exam." "Then are we still going to copy it 10 times after the exam?" Maddie asked. Helen looked up and said with the tone of a teacher, "Yes, because you're Miss Jefferson." Maddie interrupted Helen and continued. "Are you sure this isn't corporal punishment? You've asked me to copy the exam papers 3 times a day. For the first 2 days, I thought that maybe you're in a bad mood, so I listened to you. But it's been 3 days, and you still want me to do it. I didn't offend you, did I?" "I'm teaching you the way I teach all my students," Helen said coldly. "At my school, copying papers more than 5 times is a form of corporal punishment. Or is this what all the students in your university do?" Maddie asked. "For a stupid student, this is how it is," Helen sneered. Maddie glared at Helen. Was she mocking her for her poor results? "You should be a good student and study hard. You have to know Mr. Holmes hired me for your own good. Don't tell me you want to go against his good intentions," Helen asked rudely. Maddie sneered. "What do you mean? For the first 2 days, you didn't make me do any of this. But now you just keep asking me to copy the exam papers. I think that you don't like me because you like Jeff." "I do like Mr. Holmes, but it doesn't seem to have anything to do with you, does it? Could it be that you're hinting at a relationship between you and Mr. Holmes?" Helen said accusingly. What did you say?" Maddie was so angry that her face turned red. "You won't forget what I saw that day so soon, will you?" Helen hinted. Anger filled Maddie's chest. She had never been humiliated like this before. Tears rolled down her face as she stubbornly stared at Helen. Helen could only mock her in private. Maddie directly lifted her blanket and got off the bed. "What are you doing? We still need to continue with the class." Helen stood up and said. Maddie ignored her and got dressed in the closet. When she was done, she picked up her bag and left. "Maddie, do you want me to tell Mr. Holmes?" Helen called after her. Maddie's footsteps stopped. Helen knew that if she brought up Jeff, Maddie would listen obediently. Maddie turned around and looked at Helen coldly. "You should go now. I won't be attending this class. You can also help me deliver a message to Jeff. Tell him that I can't stay here anymore. If you want me to be happy, don't follow me." After saying that, she threw her bag onto her shoulder and left without looking back. Helen hadn't expected her to be so angry. She was afraid that Jeff would pursue the matter, so she hurriedly chased after Maddie. However, when she ran out of the room, Maddie was no longer there. What should she do now? How could she explain it to Jeff? Helen decided that she had to call Jeff before Maddie could call him with her own story. She dialed the number. Jeff's low voice came over. "What is it?" "Mr. Holmes, Maddie has run away," she said, her voice trembling slightly. Jeff's voice immediately became heavy. "Who let her leave?" "She left herself. I couldn't stop her. It's not my fault. I saw that she had forgotten all about the subject I was teaching, so I wanted to make her copy a few more times a day so that she wouldn't forget. After that, she ran away." Before Helen could finish her sentence, Jeff hung up the phone. After hanging up, Jeff called Maddie, but she didn't answer. Jeff had been looking at a prototype of the resort at his office building when he answered Helen's call. The top designers beside him turned silent. "Wait till I get back." Jeff turned around and left. In the car, he called Stacy. Stacy was surprised and happy to hear from Jeff. "What can I do for you?" "It's fine. I'm just wondering if you know where Maddie is." Jeff's heart was full of Maddie, but his tone was calm, and he did not show any impatience. "I wanted to ask if you had time to eat with Maddie and I for her birthday. Did she tell you?" Stacy asked, without acknowledging Jeff's question. Jeff frowned and then said, "Yes." "Really? There are still 2 days left until Maddie's birthday. I'll cook something for all of us," Stacy said with a smile. "I'll tell Maddie when I get back tonight," Jeff said. "All right. Good," Stacy said. It was clear that Maddie didn't go to Stacy's place. Where else would she go? After Maddie left the mansion, she took a bus back to school. It was a Saturday. Aside from the security guards and staff, there were no other students in the school. Maddie paced back and forth. She didn't know where she was going. Should she go back to Stacy's place? But would Jeff know that she would go to her mom? Definitely. Maddie sighed. Fortunately, she had rested for 5 days. Her knee had healed long ago, so she didn't feel any pain from walking. She went to the back of the school and sat down on the lawn. Her hand unconsciously pulled the grass. She could only think of what Helen had told her. So what if Jeff kissed her? It wasn't as bad as Helen implied, right? What right did Helen have to say that? After calling Stacy, Jeff went straight to the school. The bodyguard beside him said, "Mr. Holmes, there's no class today." Jeff looked at him coldly, and the bodyguard immediately shut his mouth. Jeff walked up to the guard and asked, "An hour ago, did a girl come in?" "Yes, she said she left something in a classroom, but she hasn't come out yet," the security guard answered. Jeff went directly in with a dark expression. There was no one in the classroom, nor was there anyone at the front. When Jeff walked to the back of the school, he saw a figure sitting on the lawn. His tense muscles finally relaxed. However, his expression quickly returned to being cold and unsightly. Maddie raised her head and saw Jeff walking towards her. His aura was sharp, and his eyes were terrifying. It was as if he wanted to swallow her alive. Maddie was shocked. Instinctively, she wanted to run. While her brain was thinking this, her body had already taken action. She stood up and ran. "Stop!" Jeff yelled. "I won't!" Maddie screamed back. Jeff's face darkened. He ran after her and caught Maddie in his hand. "I told you not to run," Jeff said as he picked her up. "Let me go! I don't need you!" Maddie yelled. Maddie struggled to pull Jeff's hand. "Jeff, you're hurting me. I'm going to tell my mom that you're bullying me." Jeff's heart softened when he saw Maddie's teary eyes. He put her down on the grass. He was standing right in front of her, looking down at her. "What are you doing?" Jeff asked. Maddie rolled her eyes and glared at Jeff, but she didn't say anything. When Jeff saw her scrunched up face, his previous fretful mood improved a lot. He even wanted to laugh. He was surprised at the emotions that he couldn't control. Before, he had very strict control over his emotions. Even if he had any emotions, he wouldn't reveal them. But Maddie had changed him. This made him unhappy, but he could not suppress the desire he felt when he saw Maddie. Jeff suppressed his emotions and asked, "What happened?" "Why don't you ask the teacher you hired?" Maddie said snappily. "I'm asking you." Jeff's expression was cold. Maddie yelled, "She asked me to copy the exam papers 10 times, every single day. This must be corporal punishment." "And you copied it?" Jeff asked. Maddie felt slightly guilty in her heart. She was panicking. Was Jeff here to punish her? I didn't copy it today. After Maddie said that, she paid careful attention to Jeff's expression.
How many days did she make you do it? Jeff asked.
2 days, but it was a lot. Jeff, when I was eating later, my hands were shaking.
Once Maddie said this, she started crying again. Jeff's face immediately darkened. He was both angry and annoyed. Why didn't you tell me? Maddie was stunned. Was Jeff actually wanting to help her? So she continued to speak.
How could I tell you? Didn't you tell me to do whatever she said?
Maddie asked. Jeff did not say anything, but his expression was extremely ugly. That teacher was courting death. Then he squatted down. Show me your hand. Maddie rolled her eyes before she stretched out her hand. Jeff held her hand in his. It was soft and tender. He looked at the back of Maddie's hand and saw a red mark on her middle finger. It was clearly caused by her holding the pencil too much. Jeff raised his eyes and glanced at her. Don't shake.
Oh.
Maddie stopped shaking and kept the pain to herself. Then Jeff's face turned dark and cold. No matter how rude the teacher was being, you shouldn't have run out. What about your injured knee? Maddie was stunned. He was acting as if he was concerned about her. What didn't you tell me? Jeff asked again. Maddie did not want to be outdone.
I already said. You were the one who invited the teacher over. I didn't dare to say anything to you.
Jeff looked at her with a cold expression and a sharp gaze from his black eyes. Since you are so confident, I have something to ask you.
What?
Maddie was slightly stunned. Did your mom tell you to invite me for dinner last time? Jeff asked. Maddie felt every nerve in her body tighten.
Jeff, let's go back quickly. It's going to rain soon. It's not good to get wet in your expensive suit.
As she spoke, she pointed her finger towards the sky. She wanted to get up and run. Her bright eyes showed shock and panic.
Jeff, what are you doing? This is a school. Don't act recklessly.
Did you invite me? Jeff asked. Maddie's eyes were wide open, her mouth tightly shut. No. Just as Maddie was trying not to scream, her waist tensed up, causing her to be unable to control herself and cry out. Maddie's face was so red that it almost turned yellow.
Don't touch me!
Did you call me or not? Jeff asked. In the next second, Maddie's rosy little mouth was covered by Jeff's. Jeff pressed Maddie down on the grass and demanded her delicacy. Maddie couldn't push Jeff away, so she had no other choice. She had never imagined being kissed by Jeff on the school lawn. She felt that she was not lying on the grass, but rather on the sea. The sea water rippled, gently supporting her body. The blue sky was also spinning in her mind, blurring her vision. Jeff slightly opened the connection between the two of them. Maddie was breathing rapidly. Her eyes were misty, and they were rippling with beauty. Maddie's heart skipped a beat when she saw Jeff's dark eyes. She hastily rolled away from him. Why are you running? Jeff called. Maddie noticed the obvious change in Jeff's eyes. He seemed to be even more dangerous now. It scared her so much that she trembled. Maddie didn't know why, but she had a nagging feeling that Jeff wasn't just trying to kiss her. Jeff no longer looked at her. He knew he wouldn't be able to control himself if he kept looking at Maddie. So he lay down on the grass and faced the blue sky. Perhaps that would put out his fire. Maddie just sat there without moving. From time to time, she looked at Jeff with a guarded expression. What was he doing? A few minutes later, Jeff stood up and walked towards Maddie to pick her up.
Ah!
Maddie put her arms around Jeff's broad shoulders. She was no longer as flustered as before, but she was still nervous.
Jeff, are we going home?
You want me to correct you again? Jeff glanced at her coldly. You need to call me by my correct name.
But it's not good to get used to it. If I call you that in front of my mom, she'll scold me.
Maddie began to find excuses. Your mother isn't here now, Jeff said.
Maddie's head fell powerlessly on Jeff's shoulder. She had a resigned look on her face because she knew that she had lost. "Handsome?" Her weak voice sounded soft and close to his ear. Jeff's heart pumped harder and his hands trembled. He almost lost his grip on Maddie. Maddie was immersed in her own despair, so she didn't notice that something was wrong with Jeff until they got into the car. Maddie moved to choose a seat. However, Jeff still didn't let her go. The arm strength around her waist was still so tight. "Jeff, let me sit by myself." Maddie pouted unhappily. "My legs aren't as comfortable as the seat?" Jeff teased. Maddie shook her head. "No." When Jeff's dark eyes looked over, she said, "The muscles on your legs aren't as soft as the cushions." While the two of them were in a stalemate, Jeff's phone vibrated and he heard the buzzing sound. When Maddie saw that Jeff wanted to answer the phone, she tried to slip off his lap. However, although Jeff was answering the phone, he did not release Maddie. Maddie bit her lips in anger. "What is it?" Jeff said into the phone. The person who called was none other than his father. "Did you think about what I told you?" "Do you think that I need to consider it? I think I've made my thoughts quite clear to you," Jeff retorted. "No, you must get married," his father insisted. "I didn't say I wouldn't marry," Jeff said cryptically. "Oh, then you mean you don't like Lydia? Fine, find a woman yourself. No matter who you marry, I agree to it, okay?" Jeff's father was so angry that he was out of breath on the phone. This was a big compromise. Unfortunately, he couldn't control his son. Jeff didn't say anything and just hung up the phone. Maddie looked carefully at Jeff. She could tell from Jeff's conversation that he had been talking with his father, and he was urging Jeff to get married. Maddie was slightly gloating in her heart and chuckled. "What are you laughing at?" Jeff asked. "Huh?" Maddie was stunned. Did she show her inner thoughts on her face? Had she laughed? I'm not laughing, am I? Jeff, I mean handsome, you must have seen it wrongly. When people are angry, they can't see clearly." Maddie tugged on Jeff's arm around her waist. "Can you let me sit on the seat? I want to sit by myself." Jeff let go and Maddie slipped off Jeff's body. Maddie thought she should comfort Jeff. She asked, "Handsome, you still don't want to get married?" "Do you have any suggestions?" Jeff looked over. "I don't dare to make any suggestions. I just feel that one day you should get married. You will get married, right? You see, my birthday is coming up and I will go back to live with my mom. You'll be alone then," Maddie said with a guilty conscience and understanding tone. Jeff's pupils darkened. He had forgotten what he said before. After Maddie's birthday, he was going to let her leave. "Do you think I'm right?" Maddie asked with bright, expectant eyes. "That makes sense." Jeff looked at Maddie's beautiful eyes and nodded. Maddie felt a glimmer of hope and continued. "Think about it. It's undeniable that we're going to get married at some point and not to each other. It's very unbecoming to live together like this, isn't it?" "Yes, you're right," Jeff mused. Maddie heaved a sigh of relief inwardly. Jeff wasn't that hard to talk to. Maddie seemed to have picked a good time for this conversation. Suddenly, she felt a sense of accomplishment. Jeff, who had been sitting lazily, suddenly changed his posture slightly and he moved closer to Maddie. His voice was low. "On your birthday, you'll move out of your room?" Maddie nodded. "That's right. When the time comes, I will return to my mother's side. If you don't marry, you will be alone." "Okay, I'll get married on your birthday," Jeff said. Maddie widened her eyes. Jeff was very different today. Maddie was so happy that she gave Jeff a big hug. "Ah, thank you. You are so easy to talk to today," Maddie said in surprise. Jeff looked at Maddie with an expressionless face. Maddie thought of something and her expression turned serious. "But Jeff, isn't this too fast?" "You don't want me to get married?" Jeff asked. "That's not what I meant. I want you to get married, but I also want you to be happy. Maddie had a pure smile on her face. Jeff didn't say anything, but his black eyes rippled. So, isn't 2 days too quick? After Maddie finished her puzzlement, she suddenly realized, you must have someone you already like, right? Could it be Lydia?
You think Lydia is good? Jeff asked, his black eyes trying to see through her.
Maddie felt a little awkward. She's fine as long as you're happy.
It's not her. Jeff shook his head.
There's someone else I don't know? Could it be Helen?
Maddie's expression immediately changed.
Jeff, if you want to marry her, seriously, I would warn you not to.
Keep guessing. Jeff's expression was cold. Maddie was completely oblivious to Jeff's intentions as she was immersed in her own guesses.
Could it be Lucia? No, that won't do. Lucia hasn't gotten a divorce yet.
Why didn't you guess your mother? Jeff teased. Maddie flinched back in fright and asked with surprise,
You like my mother? No. Then if that's the case, do I have to call you Dad? No, that's weird. I won't agree.
Maddie looked at Jeff's impatient expression. Did she guess wrong again? However, she only knew these few women who hung out around Jeff. When they walked into the hall of Jeff's house, they saw Helen sitting restlessly. Seeing Helen, Maddie snorted and turned her face away.
Mr. Holmes.
Helen immediately came over and saw Maddie in Jeff's arms. She smiled condescendingly and said,
If you have leg injuries, you shouldn't run outside. I am your teacher, so I must take responsibility for you. I must fulfill my duty.
Maddie bit her lips. She didn't want to look at Helen, and she also didn't want to hear what Helen had to say. Jeff carried Maddie upstairs without saying a word. He carried her back to the bed and said, Wait here. I'll go get some food for you.
I don't want to study at home,
Maddie said, lying down on the bed. Got it, Jeff said. Maddie was delighted when she heard that. She turned around and looked at Jeff with bright eyes.
Jeff, are you serious?
Jeff ignored her and left. Maddie pouted and fell back on the bed. She thought to herself, he'll kick Helen out, right? Jeff went downstairs. When he walked into the hall, Helen was still there.
Mr. Holmes, how about we let Maddie take a break this morning and start teaching again in the afternoon?
Helen said. For a teacher, you don't seem to be good at reading signals, Jeff said.
What?
Helen was stunned. Jeff's bodyguard brought Helen's books. Jeff took them and threw them directly at Helen's face. The sharp corner of the book drew across her face, leaving a bloody wound.
Ah!
Helen stepped back in pain. Go outside and copy it 20 times where I can't see you. Once you finish copying it, you can leave, Jeff said. And you have to kneel down while you write. With that, he left. Helen couldn't believe it.
I won't do that.
It's not up to you. Jeff snapped his fingers, and a few bodyguards came in to threaten her. Helen was unable to move as she angrily shouted at Jeff.
This is illegal. What about the law?
I am the law. Jeff disappeared as he entered the kitchen. Helen had never been treated like this before. Helen couldn't move under the suppression of the bodyguards. Outside, they made her kneel on the hard ground. Furthermore, she was wearing a dress, and her exposed skin hurt against the gravel.
Let me go! I want to call the police!
Helen cried. The bodyguard didn't waste time with her. He directly slapped Helen's face. She no longer dared to struggle. Another bodyguard placed the book in front of her and ordered, Make 20 copies. You'd better be sensible, otherwise you'll suffer. After being beaten up, Helen didn't dare to disobey. She believed that if she didn't obey, these people would absolutely not show mercy. She could only kneel down obediently and continue copying the book. To copy it 20 times was definitely not something that could be done in a short period of time.
not to mention Helen's current environment. Maddie, who was sitting on the bed waiting for lunch, had no idea what was going on outside. She only wanted Jeff to chase Helen away and didn't think about anything else. The day passed quickly. However, to Helen, who was kneeling outside, every second felt like a year. By the time it was dark, her knees were bleeding, but she still couldn't get up. There were bodyguards watching. They didn't dare to slack off. She was in so much pain. In the middle of the night, she fell asleep twice, but she was woken up by the bodyguard using cold water. In any case, she couldn't stop. She had to finish writing it. When Helen finally finished copying, it was early in the morning. Her hands were so tired, she felt like they weren't her own. She was so tired that she sat directly on the ground. The place where she was kneeling had 2 pools of blood. After struggling for nearly 10 minutes, she finally stood up from the ground. When she arrived outside the mansion, Helen immediately took out her phone and called her relatives who were working at the police station. "Cousin, I've been bullied," she reported. "Someone dares to bully you? Who is it? Tell me." Anger mixed in his voice. "Jeff Holmes," Helen said. "Jeff Holmes? Why does it sound so familiar? Is it someone from the rich Holmes family? How did you offend him?" There was worry in his voice. "He hired me to homeschool a girl staying here. There were some conflicts, and then he made me kneel outside and copy the exam book for an entire night. He is simply a madman. Bring someone to arrest him." Helen hated him to death at the moment. "Let's just forget about it. It's good that you're alive," her cousin said with some difficulty. "What do you mean? You're not even willing to help me with such a small favor? I don't usually ask you for help," Helen begged. "Yes, you usually don't, but how can I help you solve this? You already know that Jeff Holmes is not someone to be trifled with." "It's good enough that you don't have an arm or leg missing," her cousin whispered. Helen was both angry and helpless. She thought it would be good for her to have a relative working at the police station, but even the police didn't dare to do anything to Jeff. 2 days later was Maddie's birthday, and it was the first day she was allowed to get out of bed and use her legs. Maddie woke up in the morning, happily rummaging through her clothes in the closet. Today was Maddie's birthday, so she had to think of something nice to wear. She pulled out a dress. Just as Maddie was taking off her pajamas, a dark figure entered the closet without warning. Maddie looked over in astonishment. As for her current appearance, she had started to take off the pajamas covering her upper body, revealing her thin, white, and beautiful shoulders and exquisite collarbones. The seductive lines filled Jeff's vision, making him look deeper and deeper, as if he wanted to suck Maddie in. Maddie snapped out of her daze and put on her pajamas again. She immediately became unhappy. "Jeff, you can't just casually enter my room and enter my closet." "There is no place I can't go, including your room," Jeff said. He was so domineering and unreasonable, leaving Maddie speechless. Then she thought to herself, "Don't bother with Jeff. Anyway, after today, there'll be no need to come back here." "Why are you looking for me?" Maddie asked. "Come out," Jeff said as he turned and walked back to the bedroom. Maddie thought it was strange. She hadn't even changed her clothes. She walked out of the closet with a puzzled expression. Maddie saw a dress on the bed. It was so beautiful that she couldn't tear her eyes away. "Jeff, what is it? For me?" Maddie asked. Seeing Jeff's silent expression, she knew that this was a gift for her. She went up and picked up the dress and held it up to her body. She asked happily, "Jeff, is this a birthday present for me? How beautiful! Even the ladies' wear shops do not have such beautiful dresses." Jeff didn't say anything, but he thought, of course the dress outside can't be compared to any others. It was custom made for her. After all, today was very important. "Let me see you in it," Jeff said. All right.
Maddie took the dress and headed towards the closet. She thought of something at the closet door, and she suddenly stopped and turned around to look at Jeff with a hint of warning.
Jeff, you're not allowed to come in here.
And if I go in? Jeff asked calmly. Maddie panicked.
It's my birthday today, so you have to listen to me.
If you don't go in and change right now, then I'll make you do it in front of me. Jeff's eyes were filled with danger. Maddie's heart skipped a beat. Hugging her dress, she turned around and entered the closet. She thought to herself,
Jeff wouldn't really come in, right?
While Maddie was changing, she kept glancing at the closet door, afraid that Jeff would come in. Thinking of him coming in, she covered herself with her clothes quickly, ready at all times. Fortunately, Jeff didn't come in, which made her feel relieved. She came out of the closet wearing a beautiful dress. When Jeff saw Maddie, he was stunned. Her slender and graceful figure and her tenderness and sweetness were all so captivating. Maddie turned around in a circle in front of Jeff while holding the hem of her skirt.
Isn't it beautiful?
Jeff looked at her with a dark expression. He then embraced her waist. His lips were pressed close to Maddie's ear. His hot breath made Maddie's entire body tremble. Yes, you're really beautiful. Jeff's voice seemed to be hoarse. Maddie gasped in shock. She immediately struggled out of Jeff's embrace and glared at Jeff.
Jeff, how can you say something like that?
Is there a problem? Jeff asked.
Of course.
Maddie couldn't even say it out loud, but she still had to let Jeff know.
You should only say things like that with people you're in a relationship with.
Jeff's black eyes changed slightly, but he remained silent.
Can we go now? My mom must be waiting. I want to help her.
After Maddie finished her sentence, she saw Jeff walking towards her. Just as she was panicking about what he was going to do, she was picked up.
Ah! Jeff, put me down. What are you doing?
I'm carrying you, Jeff said simply.
My knee is already healed.
Still, it's good to let it heal. Maddie had no way to resist Jeff's toughness. When they got to the car, Maddie's hand touched something nearby. Maddie saw that it was a box.
Is this a gift for my mom?
Maddie asked, puzzled. Open it and take a look, Jeff said. Could it be that it wasn't a present for her mother, but another one for her? When she opened it, she found that it really was meant for her. It was a pair of flat leather shoes with sequins on them. They were exquisite and beautiful, and Maddie's eyes were filled with surprise and joy. She was wearing a beautiful dress, and if she wore these shoes, it would be perfect. Jeff took the shoes and grabbed her feet. He took off the white shoes on her feet and put on the new shoes for her. Maddie's expression was a little dazed, and her body stiffened as well. She realized that something was very different with Jeff today. No matter what, he wouldn't put shoes on a girl, right? It was as if he had let go of his pride. Especially for a strong and noble man like Jeff, this was even more unbelievable. Jeff put on the shoes and put down her feet. He looked at Maddie with a blank expression and asked calmly, "What's wrong?"
I'm fine. I just feel that you're very easy to talk to today,"
Maddie explained. "Didn't you ask me to be good to you on your birthday?" Jeff teased.
"That's true, but I didn't expect you to listen."
Maddie smiled, a little embarrassed. It's not helping her put on shoes that had anything to do with her birthday. Jeff looked at her shy expression, not saying a word. Maddie thought about how she wouldn't need to live in a mansion anymore after today. She also thought about how Jeff had taken good care of her during this period of time, regardless of his unreasonable personality. Maddie's eyes flickered as she said,
"Jeff, thank you for taking care of me. Even when I don't live here anymore, I will still visit you often. And aren't you getting married soon? Perhaps when you have a child, I'll help watch them sometimes."
"All right." Jeff smiled.
Once again, Maddie got the feeling that Jeff was different today. He seemed to have become a completely different person. However, Maddie thought that it was probably because she was going to move out. Maddie's 20th birthday dinner was meticulously prepared by Stacy. There were only 3 of them, but Maddie was already satisfied. She didn't need too many people. Simply speaking, the birthdays of poor people were always simple. However, she was glad that Jeff was there to celebrate the occasion with her. When it was over, Maddie went to Jeff to go back to his house and pack up her things. Maddie, who was wearing new shoes and a new skirt, jumped as she walked. She even spun in a circle, making the corner of her skirt fly up. When Jeff looked over, she giggled at him. "Are you happy?" he asked.
"Very much."
Maddie nodded.
"Today is my 20th birthday, and I'm wearing such a beautiful dress. Of course I'm in a good mood."
"Since you like beautiful dresses so much, why didn't you buy any with the money I gave you?" Jeff asked.
"I have to save the money,"
Maddie said shyly. "What for?"
"I won't tell you."
Jeff shook his head impatiently and got into the car, and Maddie followed him. But after getting in the car didn't move. Jeff suddenly thought of something and asked Maddie, "Is your account book here?"
"Yes. What's wrong?"
Maddie asked, puzzled.
"Go get it,"
Jeff said, without explanation.
"Do you need it now?"
Maddie asked.
"Yes."
Maddie was confused and prepared to get out of the car to get it. Then she stopped and looked at Jeff in surprise.
"Jeff, you aren't thinking of buying me something extravagant, are you? Because I don't need it. I'm already very happy with you giving me my dress and shoes."
"What are you talking about? Just go get the book." Jeff's eyes darkened. Maddie pursed her lips and unhappily got out of the car. As she walked upstairs, she muttered under her breath. When she made it upstairs, Stacy was surprised to see her. "Did you forget something?"
"No. Jeff wanted me to get my account book,"
Maddie explained.
"What for?"
Stacy asked.
"I don't know, but I think that Jeff might be giving me a house for my birthday,"
Maddie guessed.
"What? This won't do," Stacy proclaimed. "I also thought that, but Jeff suddenly became angry at me, so I came to get it."
Stacy thought about how Jeff was so nice to Maddie. She couldn't help but feel moved in her heart.
"Mom, you don't have to worry about it. If he wants to buy it for me, I'll accept it,"
Maddie said. "You think it will all be okay?" Stacy asked warily.
"He wouldn't accept it if I didn't bring him my account book. At most, after I earn some money from work, I'll return the money to him. What do you think?"
Maddie asked. Stacy knew Jeff's temper, so she could only hand over the account book. Maddie took it downstairs and gave the book to Jeff. Jeff took it, flipped through it, then closed it and stopped talking.
"Jeff, if you really buy something extravagant for me, I'll accept, but I will pay you back in the future,"
Maddie said firmly. Jeff didn't say anything and looked out of the window. Maddie couldn't understand what he was up to. Jeff didn't say anything while Maddie sat and looked out the window. Jeff looked over at Maddie's face. His expression was full of dangerous calculations. The car stopped and Maddie said,
"We're not home yet, right?"
"Get out," Jeff said. Maddie got out of the car. When she looked up from the car, the doors to the city hall were open, facing her.
"Jeff, what are we doing here?"
Maddie asked, puzzled. "Registering my marriage," Jeff answered.
"You're getting married today?"
Maddie was stupefied. "Yes," Jeff answered simply.
"But who are you going to marry?"
Maddie asked again. "Let's go in." Jeff had a strong command. Maddie walked into the city hall with a blank look on her face. She was confused. Was there someone inside that wanted to marry Jeff? Maddie looked at Jeff as he walked in. She walked behind him, and then she walked slower and slower. She thought about her birthday, the dress and shoes for her account book. Maddie felt her legs go weak. Jeff turned around and looked at her. "Why aren't you walking?"
Jeff,
I won't go in on the ceremony. I think I just want to rest for a little."
With that, Maddie left. However, Jeff grabbed her waist. Her back was abruptly pressed against Jeff's chest. "If you don't come in, then it won't be any fun," Jeff whispered.
I don't want to go in, Jeff. I'll go home."
Maddie tugged on his hands. However, her strength was no match for Jeff's, so it was useless. "Why don't you go in?" Jeff said into her ear. Maddie's entire body trembled, filled with an unfamiliar feeling. Then Maddie's body suddenly stiffened. She thought about it, but in the end, she couldn't think of any way out of this situation. Maddie's heartbeat felt like it was racing 100 miles an hour. She stuttered,
"Jeff, what are you going to do?"
"Get married." Jeff's breath was warm on her neck, causing Maddie's body to tremble again.
"To whom?"
Maddie whispered. "You're smart. Why don't you guess?" Jeff teased.
I don't want to guess, Jeff. Let me go."
Maddie's eyes squeezed shut and tears came out. "Today is a day of great celebration," Jeff said, like a gentle beast comforting the frightened Maddie. Then he lifted Maddie into his arms.
Jeff!"
No matter how much Maddie struggled, she couldn't escape him. Maddie couldn't believe what was happening. She was the one Jeff wanted to marry? It must have been a misunderstanding, or something was wrong. Maybe it was her imagination. She was taken in a daze by Jeff to the desk.
"I don't want to sign. Let me go."
Maddie's miserable voice shouted at the staff.
"Hurry up and call the police for me. I don't want to get married."
However, Maddie's frantic appeal for help was met with an expression of disregard from the staff. He even worked faster. All too soon it was over, and they were walking back to the car. Maddie still hadn't recovered from the shock. This was too big of a blow. What had just happened? Maddie looked at Jeff with dull eyes. "What, overjoyed?" Jeff asked calmly.
How could you do this to me?"
Maddie asked.
"How is this supposed to work?"
"Smile. This is your lucky day," Jeff said.
"I want to get out!"
Maddie roared. Jeff nodded, and the car stopped by the bridge. Maddie got out of the car and stood beside the railing of the bridge, looking down at the surging river. She was so angry that she threw the marriage certificate in her hands down into the water. Then she looked at Jeff, who was beside her, in a defiant manner. Jeff's expression didn't change at all.
"I tell you, I won't accept it,"
Maddie yelled. "But you won't be able to get a divorce." Jeff looked at Maddie's shocked expression and continued. "If you want to get a divorce, you need the marriage certificate." Maddie's eyes opened wide as she stomped her feet.
"Why didn't you say so earlier?"
she asked. Then she climbed up on the fence, ready to jump over and retrieve the marriage certificate. Jeff held her waist with a relaxed expression.
"Let me go! You're horrible!"
Maddie struggled to jump into the river. "Just listen for a minute," Jeff said. Maddie's struggling body stiffened. She quickly got down from the fence and pressed her skirt down as she looked at Jeff defensively. "Call me husband and I'll tell you," Jeff said.
"I'd rather scream."
Maddie shook her head. How did this happen? Jeff continued. "Let's enter the bridal chamber tonight." Maddie looked at Jeff in shock.
Are you kidding?"
"I'm not joking," Jeff said seriously.
"No!"
Maddie was so frightened that she abruptly retreated backwards, hugging herself tightly.
"I'm telling you, I don't want this."
"Then are you calling me husband or not?" Jeff asked. Maddie bit her lips. Jeff went forward and picked her up.
I don't want to. I don't want this."
Even as the car door closed, Maddie still tried to get out of the car. "If you make any more noise, we'll start in the car," Jeff said to her.
Maddie immediately became obedient and curled up by the car door while staring at Jeff resentfully. Jeff looked at his marriage certificate in his hand. He rolled down the car window, and with a flick of his hand, the marriage certificate flew out and landed on the bridge. Maddie was dumbfounded. She didn't even have the time to stop him. What are you doing throwing it away? Maddie asked. Since you threw yours away, it's useless for me to keep mine. Jeff shrugged. Why is it useless? We'll need to get a divorce later. Maddie panicked. Jeff pulled her closer to him. He lifted her chin, forcing her eyes to meet his. There's no need. Also, happy birthday. Before Maddie could react, Jeff was kissing her softly. Happy? Was it possible to turn back time? If she could, she would rather be a beggar than meet a terrifying and difficult man like Jeff. What exactly did Jeff mean by doing this? Marriage must be a matter of mutual love. Did Jeff love her? Perhaps Jeff was anxious to force her to get married because of the pressure from his father. After getting out of the car, Maddie felt a little dizzy. She touched her lips with her fingers, and they didn't even feel like they were hers anymore. She felt especially numb. Maddie glared at Jeff, then turned around and walked back into the mansion. When Maddie returned to her room, she was unable to calm down no matter how hard she tried. At this moment, her phone rang. She looked at it and saw that it was Stacy. She felt a sense of hopelessness. She answered. Mom. Did you get a house? Stacy asked. Maddie was angered by Stacy's question. She was roaring inwardly. Mom, I didn't get a house, Maddie began. So why did he need your account book? Stacy asked with a sigh. Maddie really wanted to cry out her grievances to her mother, but she did not dare to. Nothing. I don't know why he needed it, Maddie lied. Mom, I still have things to do. I need to go now. But aren't you coming back today? Stacy asked. I still have something to take care of. I'll come back later, okay? Maddie quickly hung up. Just as she hung up, a notification popped up on her phone. Maddie stared at the notification on her screen. When she saw Jeff walk in, she immediately showed him her phone. She was furious. Jeff, look at what's being said on the internet. I saw it, Jeff said calmly. It's all your fault, or else how could this have happened? Maddie stomped her feet and turned around to pack her things. I want to go to my mom's place. I don't want to be here. Jeff grabbed her waist and pushed her up against the wall. Maddie's eyes were wide with shock, and every nerve in her body was buzzing. You don't need to pack up. Have the servants move your things to my room, Jeff said. Why? Maddie asked. You don't seem to understand how a relationship has changed. Jeff exhaled. Maddie's breathing almost stopped. I'm not ready for, she stuttered. Whether you're ready or not, you can't know until after we do it, Jeff replied. Maddie was so scared that her head felt dizzy. She felt that it was absolutely inappropriate. Maddie tried to avoid Jeff for the rest of the day. Everything in her room was moved to Jeff's room. Maddie was terrified as it got later. She couldn't escape. She took a shower and locked the bathroom door, afraid that Jeff would barge in. Fortunately, the door was untouched during the shower. After washing up, she walked out of the bathroom. Jeff was standing beside the bed, taking off his watch. He looked at Maddie with his dark eyes. When Maddie saw Jeff staring at her, she was so scared that her legs went limp. Instead of going to Jeff, she stood on the other side of the bed and looked at him from afar. Jeff turned around and entered the bathroom. Maddie held her heart in her hands, frightened. When she looked at the bed, she wanted to faint. But where could she sleep if she didn't sleep on the bed? On the sofa? She believed that if she attempted to sleep on the sofa, Jeff would just carry her to the bed. Maddie crawled onto the bed reluctantly. After getting into bed, she laid down on the edge of the bed and wrapped herself in a blanket. Maddie's big eyes were blinking. She could not sleep in such a tense mood. Eventually, she fell asleep. After Jeff finished his shower, he saw Maddie, who was sleeping close to the edge of the bed. He got into bed and pulled her to the middle of the bed. Maddie wriggled her body, but did not wake up. She was so cute without any defense. Jeff looked at her sleeping face. He couldn't have predicted that he would marry any woman, let alone Maddie. He had never thought of marriage before. He had no feelings for any woman until Maddie came along. Even with Lucia, he just wanted to see if Dalen's woman was really worth the hype. It was only with Maddie that he had that kind of impulse, and it was very strong. However, he couldn't touch her now that she was asleep. It seemed that he had to endure it a little longer. On Sunday, Lucia didn't go to the office. She stayed at the mansion, and Dalen was also there. However, one was inside while the other was swinging on the swing outside. They were still in a fight, and Lucia did not talk to Dalen. Even if the two of them were eating at the same table, they would both eat in silence. There was no communication at all. Lucia sometimes wondered if the two of them had reached the end. Thinking of this way, Lucia's heart was in extreme pain. She couldn't bear to part from him. She wanted to tell herself that Dalen was acting like this because of his lost memory. But why couldn't he forgive her? Maybe it will be fine when he recovers. But Axel had said, "What if it's like this for the rest of your life?" Lucia was at a loss. "Young madame, someone is looking for you," John notified her. Lucia blinked her eyes in surprise. She looked at John and asked, "Who is it?" Lucia walked into the hall and saw Maddie sitting on the sofa. She looked at her with nervous eyes. "What's wrong?" Lucia walked over and sat down on the sofa. Have you seen any news recently?" Maddie asked. Lucia had been in such a bad mood with Dalen recently, she didn't care much about the news. "No? What's wrong?" Lucia asked. Maddie heaved a sigh of relief, but assumed a worried expression. Are you homeless again?" Lucia guessed. Maddie's body trembled when she heard the word home. "Lucia, how are you and Dalen doing?" Maddie suddenly asked. "It's the same as before," Lucia sighed. "Why don't you leave him?" Maddie asked. "Is that what you came here to tell me?" Lucia asked. She didn't think it was that simple. Maddie specifically came here to tell her not to leave Dalen? No way. "As your friend, of course I'm saying this for your own good. How about it?" Maddie urged. Lucia was just about to say something when she saw a tall figure appear not far behind Maddie. Maddie, who couldn't see anything, was still waiting for an answer, completely unaware of the danger. "Just leave Dalen. I'll introduce you to someone even better," Maddie said. Lucia's heart skipped a beat. She looked at Dalen's stoic expression and could not help but give Maddie a warning glance. Maddie was completely oblivious as she continued. "Look how heartless he is to you. Don't you want to move on? I have the perfect match for you." Lucia shook her head seriously. Maddie couldn't see Lucia shaking her head and said, "It's Jeff." Lucia was stunned. Maddie blazed on, ignoring Lucia's warning glances. "Didn't you like Jeff in the past? If you say the word, he will definitely take you away. Or you could go after him. Lucia, what's wrong with your eyes?" Maddie finally saw that something was wrong. Lucia held her forehead weakly. She had wanted to tell Maddie, but Dalen was still right behind her. Maddie finally stopped talking. At this moment, Dalen's expression was terrible. Maddie seemed to have sensed him looming behind her, and when she saw Lucia covering her face with both hands, Maddie slowly turned her head. When she saw the black figure, her heart stopped beating for 2 seconds. This I still have things to do, so I'll be leaving first.
Maddie stood up and ran. Before she could run out of the hall, she was stopped. Maddie looked at the man in black who was blocking her, and then looked at Lucia with pleading eyes. Lucia wiped her face with her hands and stood up. She looked at Dalen and said, "She is just spouting nonsense. There is no need to take it seriously." "Looks like there are a lot of men who are interested in you." Dalen's eyes turned sinister. "My cousin, my friends, my bodyguards, you want them all. But when I want Victoria, that's too much, right?" Lucia's lips moved wordlessly, turning slightly white. Her chest was in so much pain that even her breathing became unstable.
"You promised me that you wouldn't do anything with Victoria."
"What about you?" Dalen's voice turned stern.
"I already explained it to you. Spencer likes Cole. Axel and I were friends before you and I were married, and yes, I did like him in the past, but after I married you, I realized that my love for Axel is not love. I just want to be with you. How can you not understand?"
Lucia's eyes were filled with tears. After so many days of being in a fight, she was no longer able to control the grievances in her heart.
"As for Jeff, he...
When Lucia didn't say anything, Maddie raised her head and added, "Jeff is my husband." Dalen and Lucia both looked over. Lucia's gaze was stunned, and Dalen's gaze was sharp. Maddie lowered her head in embarrassment. Suddenly, a voice sounded from the doorway. "Don't spout nonsense." Jeff made his way into the hall and looked around. Maddie looked at Jeff in surprise. Why was he here? Also, what did he mean by that? Don't spout nonsense? She had told the truth. Jeff forced her to marry him, didn't he? Jeff looked at Dalen with authority in his gaze. "You should recover your memories so you can remember what happened between Lucia and me. Oh yes, once when you were not home, Lucia and I were in your bedroom." Jeff paused for a moment, as if he was intentionally creating tension. He looked at the wide-eyed Lucia and asked, "You don't remember? We had a lovely time together." Naturally, Lucia remembered that one time. However, she had thought that the person in the bed was Dalen. But the way Jeff told the story, it sounded as if she had done it on purpose. Lucia didn't even dare to look at Dalen's expression. She knew he would be seething. At this moment, she only wanted to chop Jeff into pieces. He was deliberately distorting the truth, causing more conflict between her and Dalen. This was really adding fuel to the fire. "All right, you guys take your time. We're leaving." Jeff grabbed the stunned Maddie and was about to leave. Dalen smiled and said frighteningly, "You still want to leave?" Jeff's expression changed slightly as he looked coldly at Dalen and said, "I'm afraid it's not up to you. When I came in, I saw Victoria waiting to speak to you." Just as he finished speaking, Victoria entered the hall. She looked at the scene in the hall with confusion, especially Dalen's expression, which was extremely cold. When Dalen saw Victoria, his expression slightly changed. Jeff didn't say anything and left with Maddie. Lucia looked at Victoria. Was she supposed to be grateful for her appearance? Could she calm Dalen's anger? Without saying a word, Lucia turned around and left as well. "You're not going to explain?" Dalen's deep and intimidating voice came from behind her. Lucia paused for a moment. Without a word, she headed upstairs. Dalen's face was cold as he watched her ignore him. "Dalen?" Victoria couldn't help but speak up. "Go away." After Dalen said that, he left the hall. Lucia went back to her room and walked to the window. She pressed her head against the glass, the cold feeling seeping into her forehead, but she could not stop the tears from streaming down her face. How could she explain? Would Dalen even believe her? She had explained so much, and she felt a sense of exhaustion. The door slammed behind her, and Lucia's body shuddered.
Just as she turned around, she saw a black shadow flash before her eyes, and she was pressed against the glass window. Lucia felt the cold glass on her back. She frowned as she looked at Dalen. Her eyes were filled with hostility as she said, "Dalen, let me go!" With one of Dalen's hands holding her arms down to her sides, she wouldn't be able to compete with Dalen's strength. "Dalen!" she yelled. Dalen was furious and used a lot of strength in his hands. "Explain." Ugh. Lucia felt as though she was about to break under the pressure. She panted, Aren't you tired of me explaining so much? Do you even believe me when I explain? Just let me go." "Shut up," Dalen roared. The pain in his heart was too much. "Is this your first time betraying me? You need to learn your lesson." "Dalen, what are you going to do?" Lucia asked in shock. Dalen didn't say anything and answered her with his actions. He grabbed her blouse and pulled, tearing Lucia's shirt from top to bottom. Lucia could not believe it. "Dalen, are you crazy?" "Then I'll show you how crazy I am," Dalen yelled.